Welcome back, folks. Now, a couple of months ago someone asked me whether I would make a wooden yo-yo, so that's what we're going to be making today. So I've just taken this log, which you can see here, and I milled it into these little blocks of wood. They're about 7 centimeters square, so they're slightly oversized, and I can use these to turn into a yo-yo. Now next up, I'm just going to go and drill a hole in the center of each block about 5 millimeters in diameter, so I can use a 6 millimeter screw chuck. And to make life a little bit easier, I'm cutting off the corners over here at the bandsaw. Now, as I mentioned before, I'm going to be attaching the yo-yo blanks to the lathe using a screw chuck. Now, the only screw chuck I own is this rather large one used for making bowls and such things. So I actually had to put together this screw chuck myself. And all it is really is a piece of hardwood which I've turned down. I flattened off a face, drilled a hole through it, and then from the other side I could screw through an M6 bolt which will fit in the hole which I just drilled. Now, this little screw chuck of course doesn't offer all that much support, so it's only really suitable for small projects like this, but for this small project it will work very well. So I was turning a bit too aggressively there, and what happened is the force of that just sort of pulled through the small threads on this little screw chuck. So what I'm actually just going to do is take some CA glue. I'll stick some CA glue in there. I'm just going to push it onto the threads, and hopefully once that dries up that should hold it on there sufficiently, but I should be able to still screw it off in a minute. So I'm going for a diameter of about 60 millimeters or about 2¼ inches, and now I'm at 60.8 millimeters, so I reckon I've got a little bit of room to do some sanding here, and then I can remove this one. So the other day I was watching a video posted by Frank Howarth where he turns a wooden yo-yo. Now that's actually worth a watch if you're considering turning your own yo-yo. Anyway, in that video he actually weighed the two halves of the yo-yo to make sure that they weigh the same. Now that actually makes sense, because if you can get the two halves to be pretty well balanced, it should actually run smoother. So I've actually got these sort of drug dealer style scales which I can use to measure the mass of each half. So the first half of the yo-yo weighs about 24.4 grams and this one weighs 24.9, so there's only half a gram's difference, which in all honesty is actually probably good enough. But I'm actually going to take the slightly heavier one and I can sand a little bit more off of that over at the lathe. So I actually ended up doing a little bit of sanding to both of them, and now I'm weighing 24.27 and 24.34, which to be honest is easily good enough. So next up, what I've gone and done is stuck an axle between the two halves of the yo-yo, and for that I've used some of this 6 millimeter steel shaft, and that's worked out quite nicely really, although you could use wood if you wanted. Anything between about 6 and 8 millimeters should be ideal for a yo-yo. Now, one of the more important aspects of making the yo-yo is actually the distance between the two halves when you close them together. Now, in Frank's video, he suggests a distance of about 10 playing cards, and I started out with 10 playing cards, and I found this yo-yo a little bit more responsive when I just went slightly less than that, so I've got 8 cards here, but I would suggest starting with 10 like I did and just see how much more you need to remove. So now that I have a distance I'm happy with, I'm applying a couple of coats of finishing oil. Now the final thing I have to do to the yo-yo is to attach the string. Now if you tie it on tightly, the yo-yo will just bounce up and down like a regular yo-yo. But if you want the yo-yo to sleep at the bottom of its travel, then you actually need to attach it quite loosely. So if you tie a small knot in the end of the string, you can simply untwist the strands at the bottom, and then you can just drop it over the axle like so. And to finish off, I stick the two halves of the yo-yo together. Now if you've got a good tight fit, you won't need any glue, but if it's just a little bit loose, you can take care of that with a single drop of CA glue, and later on you should be able to pull it apart if you need to. Right, so there we go, there's the finished yo-yo. I suppose it's time to take it for a test spin now. No pun intended. Okay, so I'm afraid you're going to have to forgive me. I've grown up as part of a generation who plays on video games, not with yo-yos, but I will still give it a good go. Well, that worked quite well really, much better than I expected it would do. Now I hope you all enjoyed this time's video. I know I certainly enjoyed making it. Playing with this yo-yo was actually a lot more fun than I imagined it would be. So I'm grateful to whoever suggested making a yo-yo, because I actually had a lot of fun with it. Right, that's it for this time. Take care everybody, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.